Nier broke out into the mainstream with 2017's incredible Nier Automata, and with the critical and commercial success the action RPG enjoyed, there was little doubt that Square Enix would capitalize on that IP's potential going forward. Before we get a new game in the series though, we're going to relive the past with the release of Nier Replicant version 1.22474487139, and we're just going to call it Nier Replicant for convenience sake moving forward. And before that launches a few weeks from now in this feature, we're going to go through the key details that you should know about this game. A quick note before we move forward. Please consider subscribing and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. And while you're at it, please click like if you enjoyed this video. It really helps us out. With that out of the way, let's begin. What exactly is it? Nier Replicant's existence is as complicated as you'd expect something coming from the mind of Yoko Taro to be. The original Nier released back in 2010, coming out in Japan as Nier Replicant, featuring content that was exclusive to that version of the game, which incidentally was never released in the West. This new Nier Replicant is a cross between a remake and a remaster of that Japan-only release, all of which is a long-winded way of saying that it is a remake or remaster of an alternate version of the original Nier. Setup. Nier Replicant is set in the same post-apocalyptic world as Nier Automata, only thousands and thousands of years before the latter's events takes place. Players play as a young man living in a remote village with his sister Yona, but when Yona comes down with a terminal case of a disease called the Black Scrawl, he has to set out to look for a way to save her. Teaming up with a talking book known as the Grimoire Vice, they must find a way to save his sister's life. It's a story that spans thousands of years, and one that goes to some really surprising places, as those who have played the original will tell you all too happily. If you haven't played the original but enjoyed Automata, you're going to want to check out this remake. Visual upgrade. So let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first. Given the fact that this is a remake, it's obviously going to be updating and improving a lot of stuff from the original release, and that of course includes a visual update. And it's a pretty hefty visual upgrade, honestly. While the camera work and cutscene direction of the original game have been retained almost exactly as it existed back in 2010, this new Nier Replicant has completely new and significantly more detailed looks for environments, characters, enemies, and more. Reworked combat. Nier Replicant is also making some notable changes where the gameplay is concerned, most notably in the combat area. Essentially, the battle system in this version is going to be a cross between the battle system of the original release and the combat of Nier Automata, with director Yoko Taro having set out to revise it in a way that appeals to both fans. The mechanics of the original are of course being retained, but they're going to be brought more in line with Automata in terms of style. That said, Nier Replicant's combat is going to be slower than Automata's, which makes sense since you're playing as humans in this game and not as androids.
What is this thing?
Expanded areas. It's clear that Nier Replicant isn't going to stick to the original game as strictly as some remakes often tend to do, and that's going to be true for the in-game locations as well. Environments from the original release are of course being brought over into the remake, but Square Enix and developer Toy Logic are taking this opportunity to expand upon them. Several returning areas from the original game will be much bigger in scope, allowing for greater freedom of traversal and exploration. New scenarios. Nier Replicant is also going to have plenty of new story content, which will entail both expansions to existing stuff and entirely new content. As far as the former is concerned, it's been confirmed that weapon stories from the original game have been expanded upon for the remake. Meanwhile, director Yoko Taro has also confirmed that Nier Replicant also has completely new scenarios as well, fleshing out the original game's story and adding greater context to its events. It remains to be seen exactly how substantial these will be and whether or not they will have any larger impact on the story, but fans of the series nonetheless have plenty of reason to be excited. Fully voice acted. Nier Replicant is going to be a pretty significant upgrade over the original game in the audio-visual department. We've already touched on this a little bit, and another example of that is voice acting. Unlike the original game, the remake is fully voiced, with voiceovers provided for every line in the game. On top of new voice lines being recorded, voice lines from the original game were also re-recorded from scratch rather than updating them and bringing them over for the remake. Original voice cast returns. If you were a fan of the voice work done for the characters in the original release, you don't have to worry. It's been confirmed that the voice actors for most of the characters from the original game will be reprising their roles in the remake. There are going to be a few changes here and there though, with the most significant being the recasting of Grimoire Weiss's voice. DLC weapons. Square Enix haven't really talked about what their plans are for post-launch content for NieR Replicant, but we do know that at least some DLC is planned. We already spoke about weapon stories being expanded upon for the remake, but you can expect further new content here as well, with the developers having confirmed that new weapons and weapon stories will be added to the game following its release as DLC. Specific details on this have yet to be shared, but we can at least be assured of more content for the game post-launch. PC requirements. If you're playing the game on PC, exactly what kind of a setup are you going to require? Well, all things considered, nothing too demanding. On minimum requirements, which will run the game at 720p and 60 FPS, you'll need 8GB of RAM, either an Intel Core i5-6400 or an AMD Ryzen 3 1300X, and either GeForce GTX 960 or a Radeon R9 270X. Meanwhile, on recommended settings, which will run the game at 1080p and 60 FPS, you'll need 16GB of RAM and either a GeForce GTX 1660 or a Radeon RX Vega 56, with CPU requirements staying the same. Storage requirements, meanwhile, will be 25GB of free space across the board. And that brings us to the end of the video. A quick request before we conclude. We upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you can receive daily video updates. Thanks for watching.